So more and more women are taking media jobs, but there's still not as many as men in the industry. And there's still leadership positions too that we need to think about. And that's the latest from a study that Reuters did with the University of Oxford, which is really interesting from 2023. And so we thought we'd talk about that and more here today on 91.9 Public Affairs. We're starting our series on women in the media today. I'm Micah Terrell. Thanks so much for joining us here on 91.9 FM and APSU-TV, because we'll, of course, air this there too. So joining us today is APSU alumna Valerie Anderton. Valerie, hi. Valerie, hey, you're working on hanging out with us via Zoom today. So Valerie, you're on-air personality and music director there at WJXB in FM in Knoxville. So what's it like working there? What do you do in your role there?
Well, I do a little bit of everything. I do middays, 10 to 3. I'll come in and do my prep in the morning, show prep. We have prep services, that help you out with fun stuff to talk about. You can do a little surfing and see what's out there story-wise. We just like to keep it moving, keep it fun over here. And we're the at-work station, so we like to just keep the music moving. We don't do a lot of stopping during the day. But so I do that. I'm on the air from 10 to 3, and then I go back to my desk and I use Music Master to schedule the next day or, the day after that. We try to get ahead as much as possible on music. So, but it's really all up to my boss. He kind of sets, maybe he wants to work on the music clocks for the next day or the next week, and he wants to get things going. So I have to kind of wait and see sort of where he is in his work. And my job really is just to supplement him in a way to, like, when he's out, I'm not really in charge, but I'm in charge. Like, I'll be the one that will send the music log over for the next day, merge the commercials and the traffic all together so that everything's there. And he knows we've worked together for a really long time. He was actually my boss on the station that I moved here for, 94.3. He was my boss then. And then when I moved over here to be about 10 years, it was 10 years in January, he came over a few months after I had gotten the job here. So he was my boss again. So we know how to work together. We've worked together for, 18 years. So luckily we like each other, or at least I hope you like me.
And that's a good thing, right?
So yeah, I kind of know what he's thinking a lot of times. And I don't know, I'm not going to speak for him on that, but we kind of can read each other. So that's a really nice thing about my job. And I can talk to him and not be scared to talk to him, not like, ooh, the boss, he's really open and very open to, if I don't know how to do something, I'll ask, and he's glad to show me, doesn't make you feel silly if you don't know something. So, and that's one thing, never be scared to ask. I feel like some younger people come in and they're kind of scared to ask things. And so I always say, if I'm training somebody, I go, you know what, if you know, I apologize for telling you again, but if you don't, that's great. I'm telling you now, and always ask questions,
So true. Yes.
Not everybody knows that you don't know everything. Nobody does.
No, exactly. And I know a lot of what you've learned came from, again, the broadcast media program here at Austin P. Yay, rock on, Gubs. So how, because again, asking questions I know was a big part of what we did. And again, Doc V doing what he does. What are some of the big things that you carried with you from this program to your positions there in commercial radio?
Well, and I was just telling this story the other day. There was a group of engineers that came through and toured the stations. And I said to them, I like the fact that Dr. V ran the radio station like a commercial station would be run. And it's not that picture that you get in your head when you think of a college radio station. You think people are just playing whatever they want to play. We had the rotation that we had to go through, the clock on the wall. You're pulling your cards, you're pulling your carts. And those are things like pulling music for the next person that's coming in, and getting their stuff ready to go so they're not in a rush when they come in. Things like that. Smiling is huge. And that is something I will always take with me. I have a plaque at my desk that says, "Remember, they can hear you smile," that someone got for me. It's like a little coaster or something.
So true.
Those things, I feel like he was just real, you know. He he taught me a lot, but he was also real and kind of taught it in a way where I'm like, oh, okay. Like I think I told you the story about one day I was on the air and he came in and said, you have a great smile. And I was like, need to smile more. Check. Like,
Exactly. Right.
got it. Thank you, Dr. V.
That
Yeah,
works. It does come through. It does. And I
it really
teach
does.
students, yeah, and I'm teaching, people that you got to remember because we sound so monotone when we don't smile. It's true. And so, yeah, that's a big thing. So, yeah, what about the button knob or switch?
Oh, button number switch is huge.
Right? Every time something isn't working, you got to check the buttons and the knobs and the switches.
Every, and that's what I didn't even think about that, but I probably use that on a weekly basis. If
Here
something,
too.
like say someone doing something else before you and they didn't normalize the board and put it back to where it should be. And I swear I say it out loud every time, button, knob, or switch. That's great. I'm glad you remembered that.
So true, right? Yes. So yeah, so we learned a lot, and then I wanted to ask you too. Obviously, Dr. V helped us in as a leadership role. What about leadership roles for you? What women along your journey? Because again, you've seen different positions in rock, stations, pop stations, and everything. What kind of women helped to inspire you as you progressed in your journey in radio?
Sherry Sexton at WKDF was huge. I remember applying for that research job. I worked with your hubby there at WKDF, and I remember applying for that job because the guys you guys were all working at the radio station Monday through Thursday doing the research thing, and when that job came open, I was like, "Ooh!" And I remember the day that she called me and left me the voicemail about offering me the job. And I just remember like playing that voicemail a million times because I looked up and admired Sherry Sexton so, so much. Like I had no idea all of the things that she did in her role, and I later learned, but just looking up to her as a listener and as someone who wanted to be her, just so much admiration. And she was everything and more than I think I thought she would be. She was kind. She was teaching and yeah, super knowledgeable. She was also the music director. So I remember going into her office one time and just looking at that humongous, like room as big as this, full of CDs and all the music that KDF played. She was a big one. And then once I got in the building there, also Cindy Francis, who was the promotions director, and Faye, who was the assistant promotions director. I had two great ladies there because I kind of made my tour around the station doing a little bit of everything, wanted to learn as much as possible, except for sales. I don't think I could ever do sales.
Sales is a hard job. Yeah. Whew.
Really tough. But I mean, I guess I did learn from those guys. I learned that it's a tough job, and I learned that I didn't want
Yes.
it.
Right.
But yeah, Cindy and Faye were both really great too. And I think that building may have been a unique situation with, and not everybody's experiences may have been that way. But I guess I was really lucky to have some strong females around me. And again, don't feel stupid if you don't know anything, or if you don't know one thing that you're supposed to know, you could always, it was a good environment for asking questions always. And if you had an issue, you could go to them. So those three ladies for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. And it's good as I was going to ask you too, like not just the performance part of what your job too, but you have like your roles where you work with the public and you're basically like, you are an ambassador kind of, dealing with, listeners. And then you have your job, as you mentioned, with your boss, which is a good, what challenges do you face in those different kinds of roles? Because you have multiple ones that you do as your job.
Yeah, you work with a lot of different people. And I think one thing that you may forget, like when you're out just being you on a weekend, is that, well, this role is a little different in that on the rock station, more listeners know you because I feel like it's a more loyal audience and they're really into it,
Oh, yeah.
but you're always, like representing the company. So no matter what you're doing, and it's not that you can't be yourself or do what you would normally do, but in how you interact with people. And I guess I'm I guess I'm nice in general. I don't want to treat people badly, but especially, if you're having a moment and, maybe it's at a doctor's office or maybe it's at the grocery store, you just always want to just know that you're representing the station. Does that make sense? I don't know. I'm kind of
Totally
rambling.
does. So I think you're totally right. I think that again, as again, a face of the station, we have that position where we have to be watchful and be, especially. And I wonder too, though, I wanted to ask you as a woman, I know some days I look kind of rough because I might have just come
Like,
from the gym or whatever. And I look like, oh, and I feel like as women, do guys feel that way? I feel like as women, we have a special challenge because I feel like, oh, maybe I should put a little lip gloss and, look a certain way, or whatever.
for sure. You know what did it for me was the pandemic because we
Mhm.
were still coming in every day, and I don't know what your situation was, but
Oh,
as
yeah, we were
far as,
here. I was here.
yeah, if
Mask.
you
Yeah.
know like how remotely things work, like we I don't know if you can see we have plexiglass in the studios. Just when the few people that were here, the skeleton crew that were here. But that is when I used to always be the makeup person and not wear like a ton of makeup, but just like a little, like you said, just to make myself a little presentable. Or maybe it's a day where you're really tired and you want to like put a little something on so you don't look dead to the world.
Right.
But yeah, I think I quit wearing makeup during the pandemic because I wasn't going anywhere. And I don't know. Maybe that's kind of something that we've grown up with and it's like ingrained in our brain. Yeah, you think about it. If a guy wakes up and he's feeling tired, well, I guess there's things you can do, but most guys are not going to do anything about it. They're just going to be like, well, this is just what I look like today. And, as a woman, this is what I look like today.
Yeah.
Um, but I think more so when I'm out in public, if I'm going if I'm going out to pretty much most things, I will have a little something, some mascara or something. I don't know. And I don't know why. Is that ingrained in our brains? I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Because I mean, I know growing up in the 80s and the early 90s, where I guess we felt like maybe that was the message that we got. I feel like, we'd
Hmm.
watch or I remember looking at 17 magazine, and be like, ooh, I like that look and I want to do that, or watching the movies, see, ooh, Molly Ringwald looks so pretty with that eyeliner on. I want to do that, maybe that's part of it growing up like that. And then, we wanted to keep that going. But like you said, I think with COVID, I was just like, and it was hard to wear a mask and
Yeah.
do things and talk and try to lecture with that on with makeup. There was just no way. There was no way. It just melted
No.
off my face.
And like my husband will always say, I like you better without makeup, but I think
Yeah.
it's just whatever makes you feel good um about yourself. If it's your favorite moisturizer, or I don't know what it is, but especially with COVID, like my thing is, if I'm not wearing anything, I'll wear lipstick. But
Yeah.
with masks, nobody could tell anyway, so who cares?
It's true. I'm a lip gloss and lipstick person too. And it was just like, well, dang, I guess I wait till I get home and take the mask off to put some on. But yeah, it's just, I thought it was an interesting thing because, husband Dave, he'll just be like, oh, I'll just throw a hat on, it's like, but now he's bald. So it's like, whatever, whatever. So,
It's
and I
a
know
lot
we've done hats too. So it's like, just throw a hat on and just move on your way
easier.
and stuff. Yeah.
What I was gonna say is that it never fails though, and like that didn't happen during COVID, but when they walk guests through the studio, I also have to keep that in mind. And I never wear like anything ratty to work, even if you're just feeling awful or you're sick or whatever. I never wear sweats or anything like that because you never know on that day. If I did, they would tour someone through, and you'd have to be like, "Hi," you just feel like, eh. So that's why I also try to at least not look too terrible. No, there are days I feel like inevitably on that day is the day that they'll bring like a visitor to the studio or
Here's the
something.
president of the company, right? Here, yeah. And it's just like, uh-oh. That happened to me at least twice at Channel 4 when I was there on the news. Jimmy Fallon showed up one time and then Seth Meyers the other. And I was like, oh man, I had my t-shirt and jeans. I was like, well, I was producing, I was behind the camera, nobody saw me. And, it was like, well, whatever. So, and in case you're just tuning in, this is Micah Terrell with 91.9 Public Affairs and APSU-TV. I'm talking to Valerie Anderton, who's on-air personality and music director at WJXB-FM. And we are talking about women in the media. And again, let's look back for a minute. So we both broke in right around the, late 90s, early 2000s, and basically saw, a handful of people. At least when I was working in news, we had a handful of women, okay, who were on the air and then behind the scenes doing producing. And you probably saw the same thing. What have you seen now in as you've moved through radio? Are you seeing more women in roles, forward-facing roles and leadership roles? What are kind of the trends you've noticed?
Yeah, I think here there aren't as many women well, no, I take that back. Maybe I'm just thinking like on air leadership roles because there just aren't that many. But in the building here and recently too, we've hired a lot more women, I feel like, and a lot more younger women, which is great, bringing fresh new ideas. And, they grew up in a different way. So they've got, different takes on this is what we should do and TikTok and all the things. So that's kind of great for everybody because we all can look at things from a fresh perspective. I feel like when I first moved here, I was the only girl on the rock station. And was typically the thing back in the day, I feel like. And that was 20 years ago. And here is different because it is a more woman-focused station. So we have a lot more women on this station, which are great. Well, we just had one lead, but she's just down the next floor in sales. She was on mornings. We had two women in mornings and me in the midday and weekender. So I feel like it's definitely growing. I feel like there are more opportunities. I feel like, and that's one thing I would say to someone too, is if you're a young person going in, maybe it's not the job that you want at that company, but if you want to be at that company, take a job at that company to get your foot in the door and show them what you got,
Yeah. And you got, that was my next question. What advice would you give to young women? Because I know, as you mentioned, with your experience, you kind of got your foot in the door with a job that was really not glamorous at all, research marketing type job,
Yeah.
and no on air at all, but it helped you. So what would you say to people who are trying to get in, particularly women?
That is exactly what I would do. And I feel like as a woman, and this may take it too far, but I feel like as a woman, sometimes we worry like people aren't going to think that we're soft enough or people are going to think that we're aggressive when you go after what you want. And this is something I've had to teach myself over the years. And I'm really not great at it. So, but it's just fighting for what you want and for what you deserve, whether it's the job that you want or the pay that you want. To negotiate what you're worth, and to get the role that you feel you are deserving of. And I feel like a lot of times as a woman, it's perceived differently when a man really goes after something. And a woman goes after something, sometimes it can come off, or people say she's aggressive. And if a guy does it, he's a go-getter, So I just feel like, and maybe this generation is different. Something tells me that they are.
Yeah.
A little bit more out there, and well, their whole lives are out there. And that's one advantage.
I was going to ask you, and that's what I was going to say with social, because again, we saw social kind of emerging and we've had to adjust. How have you adjusted what you do with social media now as an aspect of what you do?
It's really, honestly, it's a lot. I did, for an example, like I did an endorsement a couple of years ago for this kitchen company that did some stuff to our kitchen, and I documented it for the day, and I wanted to document as much as I could, but it's hard to I realized how hard it was because I used to kind of chuckle at quote influencers, be like, oh, this is all you do all day. But it really is quite the job, when you're trying to, it's just a lot, even on a daily basis. If we've got a contest, you've got texting, or our tech service, or you've got, you want to do something quick on Instagram or, TikTok or wherever it is, you've got people coming in sometimes throughout the week going, we want to do this TikTok video. And for me, I hate being on video. So that's a challenge for me.
Yeah, because you want to look again, make sure you put the right look out for the station and sound like
Yeah.
you're intelligent, right? So it's a challenge to do all the things and juggle. And that was leading me to my next, how are you juggling, working, social, and then of course, you've got your family life and seeing your family and everything. It's like, how do you do all of the things?
It's tough sometimes on a day. Like I had a day last week where I was like, oh my God, this day, like one thing after another. As soon as you get done with the next thing came, you're like, ah, like, and especially I think it was because it was Thursday last week because I had a day off on Friday, and every day's different, every day's different. So, it's everything from, I have to send emails to myself or remind myself to do a blog on the website. It doesn't have to be every day, but I need to do it more often than I do. So I just feel like some days I don't really have to do as much, but on the days that you do, you just do what you can, and not be hard on yourself about that, because I know that I can be, but somehow it all ends up getting done. And I feel like, especially as a woman, if you've got kids, I don't have kids, but I always ask people, because sometimes I'm like, it's just me and my husband and a dog. Like, how do you do it? And they always say, and you can vouch, like they always say, you just get it done.
Yeah, it's true. Like you
Just,
said, just getting it done. Yeah.
and you make it happen. It always works out. Maybe you're a little exhausted at the end of one day. Maybe, maybe you're not, but you just always make it work. And I just feel like I'm not doing brain surgery. So, I'm doing fun things, even if it can get a little stressful sometimes. It's fun, and it's what I went to school for. And I feel really fortunate to be able to do it still.
That's what I was going to ask you next. What's the most fun thing about what you're doing? What's the most fun?
Most fun. I think sometimes you lose perspective and you think about, well, I'm just basically talking, and I'm in a room by myself. And sometimes you can lose that and feel like you're not talking to anybody. But then, like, somebody like my husband will be out and about and say, so and so is listening to you, because we're big around town as far as every doctor office and every convenience store. Not every, but obviously a lot. But because we're the at work station, we play a little bit of everything. So I think that's pretty fun when you realize when someone meets you and they get excited. Now, I don't really I feel like maybe you have to have a little bit of an ego to do this, but I don't really feel like I have an ego. I get a little bit more embarrassed if somebody recognizes me or something. But that's fun. Okay. So on Friday, we had a guy come to the house to work on something. And then he goes, "Are you on the radio?" And I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "What station are you on?" And then I told him, and he goes, "Wait a minute, are you Trixie?" Because that was my rock radio name.
Yeah.
He was so excited that, and I was like, what? It's just weird sometimes, because you're like, I'm just me,
Yes.
That's kind of fun to make somebody's day. Or maybe it's a little kid that listens every day. And we've had that happen before, and they come in and want to meet everybody up here, and they just have the biggest smiles on their face. So that's pretty cool. I mean, and you get to meet a lot of cool people. You get to talk to a lot of cool people. You get to do a lot of fun stuff. You get to, when it was the rock station, so many concerts, so many.
Right. And so many pictures I've seen when you shared on social of, hey, I'm with so-and-so with thing. And it's like, that's so
Yeah.
cool. Yes. So yeah.
So that kind of stuff I probably took for granted, or take for granted. But I try not to, but sometimes it's just a job, and some days you're like, well, man, well, that's pretty cool,
Oh yeah. Now what things would you like to change to make media jobs better for women and minorities? Because I know it's tough for women and minorities to get in there and get what can we do to make it better?
I just feel like, oh, that's tough because I guess it really just depends on the place. I think you got to find the right company. But I feel like if you're at the right company, then more things can fall into place for you. But again, it goes back to me just taking that research job and just coming in, and I don't want to do research. Who wants to do that? But I got my foot in the door that way, and I feel like yeah, it comes down to situation. It comes down to fighting for what you want, and for, asking for what you're worth, because the pay sometimes, cannot be the greatest, but you just got to know
Yeah.
that maybe it always be that way. So I guess I maybe just got a little off track, but I guess people just need to just recognize talent, whether it's male, female, minority, just good. We need good people. You always need good people. And I feel maybe I've worked for companies where I don't see that much of that. So I feel fortunate to be a woman and to have had this position for a long time. I'm rambling again, Micah.
No, you're
But
fine. You're totally making sense because it seems like, and I wanted to talk about context too. Building context is our last question before we say goodbye. But how many contacts you've had helped you get? It's like a domino. Like, okay, we need Dr. V. Dr. V helped me find my first position. You had friends at another job. That helped you get into that position, which led to another and another. The importance of building contacts. Do we need to like stress that to people more, or?
I think so. I mean, I think sometimes people can kind of goof on LinkedIn a little bit because it is what it is, but it's maybe not as fun as some of the other social sites. But I just made a point a few weeks ago just to go. I don't go to LinkedIn often, but I just made a point to go and be like, okay, we do a lot of stuff with Dollywood. Maybe I should connect with their marketing person. I don't really know them personally, but yeah, absolutely. It's who you know. And most of the time it's who you know, even if it's not who you know that gets you the job, it's who you know that gets you an interview. And maybe that interview doesn't lead to a job, but maybe they know someone who's looking for a job better suited to you. But yeah, absolutely. I feel like, yeah, I mean, contacts are everything.
Yeah, and LinkedIn is a great place. Like you said, people poo-poo it a lot, but it's a really important thing to do. Have that LinkedIn profile and keep it up,
Yeah.
because you never know.
I try to, and that's another thing, juggling all the things, all the social media that can be a lot sometimes. But yeah, I'll just make a point to go on there every now and then and just see what's going on, because you never know. Maybe you're in a great opportunity and then you find a better opportunity or a job that is better suited to you, better pay, whatever the case may be. And maybe you make at the very least, maybe you make a friend out of the situation,
Right.
never know. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So what did I not ask you about that you want to talk about?
Oh, here's another thing that I always try to, if someone, okay, say we don't really do interns here, but if
Mhm.
we have a person that comes in, I would say to anybody who's in a role, maybe it's the role that they've always wanted, or maybe they're working their way up, either way, and they meet a new person. That's another piece of advice that I would give. Or at least just if someone comes in, say to them, always say, hey, if you want to come sit in the studio for a few minutes, for an hour or whatever, and kind of look at everything. If it's like a brand new person who's never been or worked at a radio station, they're always like, really? And I feel like that has made an impact on a couple of people that ended up working here, that was like, they were in UT and they were like, they came up here for a class. And I just feel like always give someone an opportunity, because I was always appreciative to people that did that for me and just said, hey, here's what we do here. Kind of teaching moments that are fun for you, and it kind of makes you discover more things about your job, or like rediscover the love for your job, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, definitely. Valerie,
Yeah.
thank you so much. We're out of time, but it was so good to see you again. Thank you for again joining us, and let's go P.
Let's go. Hey.
Yay. Thank you, Valerie Anderton, on-air personality, du jour, especials extraordinaire, and also music director at WJXB. Thank you so much. And I'm Micah Terrell with 91.9 Public Affairs and APSU-TV.